Hello and thanks for joining us for our late night newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story tonight, the UN Security Council has condemned North Korea for its attempt Friday to launch a ballistic missile. In a press statement, the Council said the failed launch represents a clear violation of a series of UN resolutions banning Pyongyang from any ballistic activity. It added that North Korea should refrain from further actions in violation of the relevant Security Council resolutions and comply fully with its international obligations. The Council also reiterated the importance of implementing UN sanctions on the North and urged all UN member states to redouble efforts to carry out the resolutions. The South Korean government has welcomed the statement, calling it a stern and swift response to Pyongyang's provocations. North Korea attempted to test fire a Musudan intermediate-range missile off its east coast on Friday morning, but it's believed the missile exploded shortly after launching. The regime was hoping to mark the birthday of the North's founding leader Kim Il-sung, grandfather of current leader Kim Jong-un. Staying with North Korea, and the regime appears to have started its reprocessing campaign at its main nuclear site. US-based North Korean monitoring website 38 North says recent satellite imagery shows new developments at the Yongbyon nuclear center, indicating the regime has already begun or plans to start reprocessing additional plutonium for nuclear weapons. This activity consists of the presence of a loaded railroad flat car at the radiochemical lab, excavation alongside a building used to store waste, and excavation work at the reactor's cooling water system. Now, the website says its conclusion is consistent with a recent statement by US Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, in which he said North Korea could begin to recover plutonium from the reactor's spent fuel within a matter of weeks to months. Rescuers in Japan are facing a daunting task after 2 earthquakes hit the island of Kyushu in little more than 24 hours. More than 30 people are known to have died in the quakes, and scores are still thought to be trapped under collapsed buildings. Hwang Jie has this report.
Just over a day after the first hit, a second, even more powerful earthquake struck the southern city of Kumamoto early Saturday. NHK reports that the 7.3 magnitude earthquake killed at least 28 people and left hundreds more injured. This brings the death toll from the 2 earthquakes to at least 37, as the 6.5 magnitude quake that hit the same region on Thursday night killed 9 people. While the exact number of casualties remains unclear, evacuees had another sleepless night.
The night before last, I stayed in the gymnasium, and last night I was dozing off in the gymnasium when the earthquake happened around midnight. That damaged the school buildings and the gymnasium, so I have been here since around 1 a.m.
The aftershocks are continuing, so I can't even begin to think of what's ahead.
Japanese media reports that power was cut for around 200,000 homes in the area. And it's not just power outages. The damage covered collapsed bridges, split roads, and grounded flights. With rain that could further complicate rescue operations by weakening already flattened buildings, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says rescue efforts are at a critical stage.
We are currently trying to assess the situation as best we can and rescue those in need.
Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga says nearly 80 people are assumed to be trapped under rubble. He said extra troops and more medical personnel would be dispatched. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, no Korean casualties have so far been reported in the series of deadly earthquakes that struck in southern Japan. The Korean Consulate General in Fukuoka says there haven't been any report of harm to Korean nationals. However, he did say that Korean tourists have been calling to seek help amid a suspension of flights and other traffic controls put in place. The Consulate General says it has sent 5 buses to transport 200 Koreans from the worst-hit areas to Fukuoka. Koreans in the area have been notified by text message to be extra careful as more earthquakes and aftershocks could happen at any time. Korea is marking the second anniversary of the Sewol-ho ferry sinking. More than 300 people died in the disaster that shook the nation to its core. The government has since made improvements to public safety as the country remembers the victims. Hwang Ho-jun reports.
304 lives were lost on April 16, 2014. The victims, mostly high school students. The ferry sinking off Korea's southwestern coast left the country in fathomless grief. 2 years on, and Korea marks the second anniversary of the Sewol-ho disaster. A number of ceremonies to commemorate the tragedy and to raise awareness on public safety issues were held across the country. Commencing the second annual Day of Public Safety, designated after the tragedy, the Korean government stressed the importance of public safety. Speaking at the ceremony, Korea's Prime Minister said the government has revamped its disaster response system by expanding special rescue teams, increasing rescue equipment, and modifying safety manuals.
Learning from the painful lesson of the Sewol-ho incident, the government will reinforce the safety system across society and do its utmost to create a safer Korea.
In the city of Ansan, the hometown of the students who died, waves of visitors came to pay tribute to the victims at the joint altar set up by the government. In the afternoon, thousands of people commenced a march in order to send a message, not to forget the victims.
I think it's important to always remember them, to always remember what happened, not just today, not just as an anniversary.
A disaster one too many. The Sewol-ho disaster left a scar on people's hearts that will go on for years. Ensuring people's safety, ensuring the death of the victims would not be in vain, and ensuring that a tragedy like this would never happen again. These are the very reasons that the nation, both the government and the people, solemnly remember the tragedy that happened 2 years ago and will continue to remember. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's finance minister says the government's strive to push through structural reforms will remain intact, despite the once-ruling Sewol-ho party losing its majority in the National Assembly in this week's general election. Sewol-ho's comments came on Friday in Washington as he's there to take part in a meeting with G20 finance ministers and top central bankers. Minister Yu added that the political parties agree on the necessity of reforms in 4 sectors involving labour, finance, public sector and education. Meanwhile, in a communique released after the G20 financial leaders meeting, the countries pledged to actively introduce fiscal policies to boost growth while pushing through structural reforms in a much more aggressive manner. The accumulated sales of Korea's largest automakers, Hyundai Motor and its affiliate Kia Motors, have surpassed 100 million units. Company officials say the combined accumulated sales reached the landmark figure on Friday. The achievement comes 54 years after Hyundai Motor Group began making cars all the way back in 1962. The group has sold roughly 30 million vehicles in Korea, with the rest sold around the world. Hyundai Motor Group chairman Jung Mong-gu said Friday that Hyundai and Kia will easily meet their annual global sales target of 8.13 million units this year. Now, artificial intelligence, AI, is quickly extending its presence, now tapping into the construction industry. And with the technology, which was recently introduced in Korea, experts will be able to simulate construction on the moon and rescue missions inside nuclear power plants. Park Se-young has the details.
The space on the moon was created through artificial intelligence and 3D printing. With 3D glasses, builders can plan carefully as if they're actually standing on the moon. The technology, called Building Information Modeling, can also recreate nuclear power plants for rescue simulations.
If we take the 3D model created by the technology and combine it with projection software, we can create a virtual reality space for hands-on experience.
After filming a building complex with a drone, the program can look inside the building and provide spatial information of the inner structure. If this technology is applied to building or bridge construction, design error costs can be substantially reduced.
By simulating construction beforehand, we can reduce construction errors by about 8% and cut costs.
The technology is also expected to help with disaster preparedness, as it can provide information on the extent of damage. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, before we go, we're going to leave you with a brief summary of the weather for this weekend. And for most of the central region, including Seoul, we are continuing to have a wet and windy Saturday night. The rain should, however, let up around much of the country by Sunday morning. Tonight's low will dip to just 10 degrees Celsius in Seoul. Sunday's high will top out at 17 degrees in the Korean capital. With that, let's take a look at the weather around the world. Well, those are stories we have for you at this hour. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website arirang.com/news. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye.